The Grand Meridian Hotel prided itself on perfection. 5 stars, presidential suites, Michelin-starred restaurants, and at the center of this empire of luxury stood Marcus Reed, the hotel's general manager, a man who commanded his staff with military precision and ice-cold efficiency. Tonight, as a charity gala for veterans was being set up in the hotel's grand ballroom, Marcus strode through the gleaming hallways in his immaculate suit, coffee in hand, checking that every detail was flawless. The event would host high-ranking military officials, politicians, and celebrities. Nothing could be out of place. As he rounded the corner toward the ballroom service entrance, Marcus froze. A cleaning cart blocked his path, and beyond it, a woman in the hotel's housekeeping uniform was methodically polishing the ornate door handles that led to the ballroom. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice sharp with authority. "This area needs to be cleared immediately. We have VIPs arriving in less than 2 hours." The woman turned, her movements calm and deliberate. She appeared to be in her late 40s, with dark hair streaked with silver pulled back in a tight bun. Her face showed subtle lines of experience, but it was her eyes that caught Marcus off guard, deep brown and unflinchingly steady. "I'm almost finished," she replied, her English precise but tinged with an accent he couldn't quite place. Eastern European, perhaps. "Almost isn't good enough," Marcus snapped. "This event is for distinguished military personnel and government officials. Everything must be perfect." He glanced at her name tag. "Ms. Varga, I need this area cleared now." The woman, Sophia Varga, according to her badge, didn't flinch at his tone. Instead, she assessed him with a cool gaze that most of his subordinates would never dare. "I understand the importance of the event," she said. "That's why I'm ensuring every surface is properly prepared." Marcus felt a flare of irritation. Housekeepers didn't typically talk back, especially not the immigrants who made up most of the cleaning staff. He was used to nods, apologies, and quick compliance. "Look," he said, deliberately slowing his speech as if speaking to a child, "this is a very important night. Very important people will be here. I need this area clear now." Something shifted in Sophia's expression. Not intimidation, as he expected, but something more like disappointment, as if she had assessed him and found him lacking. "Of course, Mr. Reed," she said, her voice perfectly professional, despite his condescension. "I'll move to another section." As she began gathering her supplies, Marcus noticed how methodically she worked, each movement precise and economical. Even in retreat, there was something almost commanding in her demeanor. He dismissed the thought. "And make sure the West Wing is spotless. The General Suite needs special attention." Sophia paused briefly. "The General Suite. For General Hayes?" Marcus frowned. How would a housekeeper know which VIP was staying where? "That's confidential information, Ms. Varga. Just make sure it's perfect." A hint of a smile touched her lips. "Everything will be in order, Mr. Reed." As she wheeled her cart away, Marcus watched her go, momentarily puzzled by the interaction. There was something off about that housekeeper, something that didn't fit the mold. But he had no time to dwell on it. He had a gala to perfect. Hours later, the Grand Meridian's ballroom glittered with success. Military dress uniforms mingled, with designer gowns. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over decorated war heroes and political power players. Marcus moved through the crowd with practiced charm, ensuring every guest felt appropriately catered to. As he approached a group of high-ranking officers, he overheard fragments of conversation. "Can't believe she's actually here." 30 years of distinguished service, turned down a Pentagon position to work with refugee resettlement. Marcus smoothly inserted himself into the circle. "Gentlemen, I trust everything is to your satisfaction this evening." A colonel with a chest full of medals smiled. "Absolutely. The Grand Meridian never disappoints, though I'm more interested in finally meeting General Varga in person. Her reputation precedes her." Marcus maintained his professional smile, though the name triggered something in his memory. "General Varga? I don't believe I've had the pleasure." The colonel looked surprised. "Really? General Sophia Varga, one of the most decorated strategists in NATO operations. After her country's government fell, she continued advising Allied forces before taking U.S. citizenship." Brilliant military mind, she's supposed to be here tonight. Before Marcus could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. A group of high-ranking officers had clustered around someone, their faces animated with respect and admiration. The crowd parted briefly, and Marcus caught a glimpse of a woman in a dress military uniform adorned with medals and insignia that marked the highest ranks. Her silver-streaked dark hair was arranged in an elegant bun, her posture impeccable, as she graciously greeted the officials around her. It took Marcus a full 3 seconds to recognize the same face that had looked up at him from beside a cleaning cart just hours ago. Sofia Varga. Not just Sofia Varga, housekeeper, but General Sofia Varga, apparently a military legend among those who knew such things. The realization hit him like ice water. The woman he had spoken to like a simpleton, the woman he had dismissed and demeaned, was here now as an honored guest, surrounded by people who clearly held her in the highest esteem. "Ah, there she is," the colonel said, oblivious to Marcus's shock. "Let me introduce you. You'll want to know her. She's chairing the Veterans Support Initiative your hotel is partnering with for the next year." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face as the colonel led him toward the group. General Varga, Sofia, looked up as they approached. Their eyes met across the room, and in that moment of recognition, Marcus saw not anger or triumph in her gaze, but something more unsettling, simple acknowledgement, as if his earlier behavior was just one more data point in a long history of similar encounters. "General Varga," the colonel said, "may I introduce Marcus Reed, the general manager of the Grand Meridian. Marcus, this is General Sofia Varga, former commanding officer of the 3rd Special Operations Division and current advisor to NATO." Sofia extended her hand, her expression perfectly professional. "Mr. Reed and I have already met, though under different circumstances." The colonel looked confused, but before he could ask, another official pulled him away, leaving Marcus alone with the woman he had treated as invisible just hours before. "General Varga," Marcus managed, taking her offered hand. I don't understand." Sophia's handshake was firm, her gaze direct. "What don't you understand, Mr. Reed? That I was cleaning your hotel? Or that I'm also a general?" Marcus struggled to reconcile the housekeeper from earlier with the distinguished military officer standing before him. "Both, I suppose. Why would someone like you—" "Someone like me," she echoed, one eyebrow raised slightly. Marcus flushed. "Someone with your credentials, your rank. Why would you be working as hotel housekeeping?" Sophia regarded him thoughtfully. "Walk with me," she said. Not a request, but a command. Despite himself, Marcus found he was following her to a quieter corner of the ballroom. "Mr. Reed," she said when they were relatively private, "I came to this country after my homeland descended into civil war. I had been a general for 15 years, commanded troops in 3 conflict zones, advised NATO on counter-terrorism strategies. But when I arrived here," she smiled, though there was no humor in it, "my experience meant nothing. My credentials weren't recognized. My accent marked me as an outsider." Marcus listened, unable to find words. "I could have called in favors, perhaps, used connections, but I chose not to." She gestured toward the room full of military personnel. "These people know me from my work, but I wanted to understand this country from the ground up, not from positions of privilege. So I took jobs that were available. I cleaned offices. I served food. I made beds in hotels. But why? Why subject yourself to that when you could? Because leadership isn't about titles, Mr. Reed." Her voice was quiet, but carried the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "It's about understanding the people you serve and the systems you operate within. How can I effectively help refugee resettlement if I don't understand the reality they face, the jobs they take, the treatment they endure?" Marcus felt a creeping shame as he recalled his earlier behavior. "Besides," Sophia continued, "there is dignity in all honest work, something many people forget when they achieve a certain status." Her gaze was pointed, and Marcus knew she was referring to his own attitude. "I didn't know," he said weakly. "No, you didn't," Sophia agreed. "But the point is, you shouldn't have needed to know I was a general to treat me with basic respect." The truth of her words struck Marcus with unexpected force. He had prided himself on running a world-class hotel, on maintaining standards of excellence in service. Yet he had failed at the most fundamental level of human interaction, seeing the dignity in a person regardless of their position. "You're right," he said finally, "and I apologize for my behavior earlier." Sophia studied him, as if assessing the sincerity of his words. "Apology accepted, but perhaps consider that I'm not the only one deserving of an apology. Your housekeeping staff, the ones you speak to like children, the ones whose names you don't bother to learn, they deserve better." Before Marcus could respond, they were interrupted by the event coordinator announcing that the formal program would begin soon. Sophia nodded toward the stage. "I'm expected to speak. If you'll excuse me, Mr. Reed." As she walked away, Marcus remained frozen in place, his carefully constructed worldview tilting on its axis. He watched as Sophia took the stage, the room falling, silent with respect, as she began to speak about courage, service, and the invisible battles many veterans continue to fight after leaving the military. Her presence was magnetic, her words measured and powerful. This was clearly a woman accustomed to command, to having her words carry weight. And yet hours earlier, he had dismissed her as just another immigrant worker, someone beneath his notice except to give orders to. When the speech ended and the applause faded, Marcus found himself moving through the rest of the evening in a daze, performing his duties automatically, while his mind replayed his interaction with Sophia over and over. The way he had spoken to her, the way she had looked at him, not with anger but with that calm assessment as if his behavior was a problem to be analyzed rather than an insult to be resented. As the event wound down and guests began to depart, Marcus spotted Sophia near the exit, speaking with a group of officers. On impulse, he approached once more. "General Varga," he said, "may I speak with you privately for a moment?" Sophia excused herself from her colleagues and followed Marcus to a quiet alcove off the main lobby. "I've been thinking about what you said," Marcus began, finding himself uncharacteristically uncertain. "About dignity in all work, about respect." Sophia waited, her expression neutral but attentive. "I want you to know that your words, they've affected me, more than I expected." Marcus ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a rare gesture of genuine discomfort. "I've always thought of myself as professional, as maintaining standards, but I see now that I've been selective in how I apply that respect." "Recognition is the first step to change," Sophia said simply. "Yes, well," Marcus straightened, finding firmer ground in action rather than reflection. "I'd like to make some changes in how we operate, how we treat our staff, particularly housekeeping. Would you be willing to meet with me, perhaps advise me on how we might improve?" Sophia's expression remained impassive, but something in her eyes shifted, a spark of interest, perhaps even approval. "You're asking me to consult on hotel management?" "I'm asking for your expertise on leadership," Marcus clarified, "on building systems that respect human dignity regardless of rank or position. Isn't that what good military leadership is about?" At its core. For the first time that evening, Sophia's smile reached her eyes. "Yes, Mr. Reed, that's precisely what it's about." She reached into her small clutch and extracted a business card. "My contact information. Call my office tomorrow. We'll set something up." Marcus took the card, noticing the embossed insignia of the Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee. "Thank you, General." Sophia nodded once, then turned to leave. At the last moment, she glanced back. "Oh, and Mr. Reed, I'll still be working my regular housekeeping shift on Thursday. I'd appreciate it if you didn't mention my other role to the staff. The experiment is ongoing." With that, she was gone, leaving Marcus standing in the alcove, holding her card and grappling with a new understanding of the invisible hierarchies he had taken for granted his entire career. 3 months later, the housekeeping staff of the Grand Meridian Hotel gathered in the employee break room, confused by the sudden meeting called by management. Rumors had been circulating for weeks about changes coming to the hotel, possibly layoffs or restructuring. Sophia Varga sat quietly among her colleagues, her housekeeping uniform as neat as her military one had been. She had continued her shifts, watching with interest as subtle changes had begun taking place throughout the hotel. new ergonomic equipment for the cleaning staff, adjusted schedules that allowed for better work-life balance, management training that emphasized staff dignity and respect. The door opened and Marcus Reed entered, followed by several members of the executive team. The room fell silent. "Good morning," Marcus began, his tone different from the clipped authority most of them were used to. "Thank you all for coming. I've asked you here today because we're implementing some significant changes at the Grand Meridian, and you, our housekeeping staff, are at the center of these changes." Nervous glances were exchanged around the room. "For too long," Marcus continued, "we've operated under a flawed understanding of what makes this hotel excellent. We've focused on the visible aspects, the decor, the amenities, the customer-facing services. But we've failed to recognize that the foundation of our success is you, the people who maintain our spaces, who create the environment of perfection that our guests experience." Sophia watched him carefully, noting the genuine conviction in his voice that hadn't been there 3 months ago. "Starting today, we're implementing a new program called Foundations of Excellence. This includes pay increases across all housekeeping, positions, clear paths for advancement within the company, educational benefits, and a complete overhaul of how management interacts with staff." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the room. "Additionally," Marcus added, "we're creating a new position, Director of Staff Development and Dignity. This person will report directly to me and will advocate for your needs, ensuring that the respect you deserve is built into our operational structure." He paused, looking around the room before his gaze settled on Sophia. "And I'd like to announce that we've found someone uniquely qualified to fill this role, someone who understands both leadership and service from multiple perspectives." Sophia straightened slightly, realizing what was coming. "Ms. Sophia Varga has accepted the position, effective immediately." The room erupted in confused whispers. Several of Sophia's colleagues turned to her in shock. Marcus raised a hand for quiet. "What many of you don't know is that Ms. Varga brings exceptional qualifications to this role. Before joining our housekeeping staff, she served as a military general, commanding thousands of troops and advising on international security operations." The whispers turned to gasps of disbelief. "Sophia agreed to continue working in housekeeping these past 3 months, even after I learned of her background, because she wanted to fully understand your experiences before taking on this new role. Her insights have been invaluable in designing our new approach." Sophia stood, moving to the front of the room to stand beside Marcus. The contrast between her housekeeping uniform and her authoritative presence created a powerful visual that wasn't lost on anyone present. "I've been honored to work alongside all of you," she said, her voice clear and confident. "And I've learned more from you than you might imagine. In my military career, I encountered many types of courage, but the quiet dignity with which you all perform your essential work, often in the face of disrespect or invisibility, is a form of courage I've come to deeply admire." She looked around at her colleagues, many of whom were still processing the revelation of her identity. "In my new role, I promise you this: your voices will be heard, your expertise will be valued, and the contributions you make to this hotel will be recognized, not just in words, but in concrete improvements to your working conditions and opportunities." One of the older housekeepers, a woman from the Philippines who had worked at the hotel for 15 years, raised her hand tentatively. "Why didn't you tell us who you really were?" Sophia smiled. "Because who I really am includes both parts of my experience, the general and the housekeeper. One role didn't erase or diminish the other, and I needed to understand the reality of your work without my title changing how I was treated." The woman nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. Marcus stepped forward again. "Ms. Varga has taught all of management, a valuable lesson about looking beyond titles and positions to see the person. Each of you brings unique value to the Grand Meridian. Each of you deserves to be seen, heard, and respected. For that value," he gestured to a set of documents on the table. "These folders contain details of the program changes, including your individual pay adjustments and benefit enhancements. We'll be meeting with each of you over the next week to discuss how these changes affect you personally and to hear your input on further improvements." As the meeting concluded and staff members began excitedly examining their folders, Sophia found herself surrounded by colleagues, friends, who suddenly saw her in a new light. Their questions came rapidly, a mix of curiosity about her military background and hope about the promised changes. Did you really command troops? Why would you work as a housekeeper when you could have had any job? Will we really get educational benefits? Sophia answered patiently, explaining her journey and the vision she shared with Marcus for transforming the hotel's culture from the inside out. As the crowd around her gradually dispersed, she found Marcus waiting nearby. "Congratulations, Director." "Varga," he said, extending his hand. "Or should I say General?" Sophia shook his hand firmly. "Sophia is fine. Titles change. People are what matter." Marcus nodded, understanding the lesson at a deeper level now. "You know, when I realized who you were that night at the gala, I was mortified, embarrassed at how I'd treated a decorated general." "And now?" Sophia asked. "Now I'm more troubled by how I treated a housekeeper," he admitted. "Which I think was your point all along." Sophia smiled. "Leadership lessons can come from unexpected places, Mr. Reed." "Indeed." "They can," he agreed. "And please call me Marcus. After all, we're colleagues now." As they walked together toward what would be Sophia's new office, Marcus added, "You know, I've been thinking about expanding this program to other hotels in our group. There's an industry-wide problem with how housekeeping staff are treated." Sophia nodded. "One hotel at a time, Marcus. Change happens gradually, then suddenly." "Like a military campaign?" he asked. "Like most meaningful transformations," she corrected. "Whether on battlefields or in boardrooms or in hotel hallways, the principles remain the same. Respect the dignity of every person, recognize the value they bring, and create systems that enable them to contribute their best." Outside the window of her new office, Sophia could see housekeepers pushing their carts down the hallway, performing the invisible work that made luxury possible. But they moved differently now, with the confidence of people who knew they were finally being seen, and in their visibility, Sophia found the most meaningful victory of her distinguished career. Life has a way of revealing our blind spots in unexpected moments. For Marcus Reed, it took meeting a general disguised as a housekeeper to recognize the humanity he had overlooked in those he considered beneath his notice. And for Sophia Varga, it took stepping away from power to truly understand how to use it wisely. What about you? Have you ever misjudged someone based on their job or appearance? Or perhaps you've been on the receiving end of such judgment? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more inspiring tales of hidden dignity and unexpected wisdom.